we're moving very, very quickly in a direction where uh, we have a strategic Bitcoin reserve,
Hmm.
where the largest entity in the world, which is the US government, is buying Bitcoin. And so if you're not buying Bitcoin and your government is buying Bitcoin, and you're sort of still on the Peter Schiff train that this is not real money, you got to go see a doctor because you know, obviously it's real if the U.S. government's buying it. So it doesn't matter how much the U.S. government buys.
Yeah.
The fact that we have a strategic reserve is all you need to know. That is all you need to know.
The Bitcoin frenzy is reaching fever pitch as the king of cryptocurrencies rockets toward the mythical $100,000 mark. And Fred Krueger, celebrated author of the Big Bitcoin book and an unwavering Bitcoin evangelist, has a bold prediction. The financial world is about to witness a seismic shift. Krueger paints a staggering picture of the global financial landscape: $46 trillion locked in equities, another $46 trillion in bonds, and $5 to $6 trillion sitting idle in cash. Yet Bitcoin, with its current market cap of $1.5 trillion and ETFs holding a modest $100 billion, represents a mere 0.31% of total global financial assets. This, Krueger asserts, is a blip compared to what's coming. In his words, the Bitcoin market is like a dam about to break, poised to unleash a trillion-dollar tidal wave over the next 4 years. What's driving this unprecedented surge? The rise of Bitcoin-focused ETFs. By simplifying the investment process, ETFs have shattered barriers that once kept traditional investors, pension funds, retirement accounts, and institutional players on the sidelines. As Bitcoin charges toward $100,000, Krueger's vision is clear. We're not just watching a bull run, we're witnessing the early stages of a financial revolution that could redefine the world's economic order. To further explore Fred Krueger's thoughts on investing in Bitcoin, let's watch more clips from the interview. Please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and enable notifications. Thanks for joining us again. Enjoy the video.
There's about 47 trillion dollars worth of stocks out there, an equivalent amount of bonds, and 5 or 6 trillion of cash out there. And just in the U.S. alone, there's $100 trillion of financial assets. Um, Bitcoin right now is a $1.5 trillion asset class, but of that 1.5 trillion, TradFi only owns about $100 billion worth, which is kind of the value of all the ETFs, which is about 1 million coins, and MicroStrategy, right? So
Hmm.
in a world where they have $100 billion of it, but their total pie is $100 trillion, their actual asset allocation is 0.1%. And actually, it's less than that because Bitcoin's a global asset, and the U.S. doesn't have more than a third of the total global pie.
Hmm.
So we're looking at something like 0.3 tenths of a percent of allocation to this asset class. We're going to north of 1% very quickly.
Yeah,
Uh,
I
so
think I
so we're
think
we're looking at $1 trillion coming into this asset over the next, let's call it, 4 years. But it's if this money's coming in, you don't really want to be the last guy in the pool. Yes, there's some leverage with MicroStrategy buying a little bit of. I mean, all the amount of money that's come into this market is inconsequential relative to the amount of money that's about to come into this market. It just doesn't matter. So, again, there's these big buckets of money in the world, right? So there's self-directed people going to their stock, their portfolio, their account at Merrill Lynch, and just clicking a few buttons and picking up some exposure to MSTR or one of the new ETFs. That's a third. You have
Mhm.
institutions like pension funds, retirement accounts, and things like that. That's another third. And then you have managed accounts where wealth managers are allocating on behalf of their clients. That's a third. And none of these things they're just like dipping the very top bit of their toe in the water. That's 0.1%. They are not involved yet. So, it's sort of like the dam is, there's a little bit of water, there's a little fissure in the dam, and we're seeing some water drip through the dam, and we're going, oh my God, is this, how much is the entire dam is about to break. Looking at the chart of Bitcoin in the past, I don't think informs you very well as to where it's about to go. We are about to have a breaking dam moment where TradFi has finally awoken to this asset, and number one, understands the asset, understands the opportunity, and number two, can now for the last 9 months invest in this asset. That the ETF is live. They can push a button, they can get exposure. So I think we have the catalyst for this move, which is the ETF. That's the necessary and sufficient condition. Before that, traditional finance, traditional investors couldn't buy Bitcoin easily. Sure, they could open an account at Coinbase, but that's a very small percentage of people who are going to do that. Most people, they have their assets in a brokerage account or in a bank, and for them to wire money to this thing called Coinbase and buy Bitcoin it's a stretch. And it's even more of a stretch to tell them you got to put a private, get a seed phrase, copy it down, store it in a safe, get a ledger, and hold your own Bitcoin yourself. That's not going to happen for most.
No, it's a
very
good point.
They're not going to do that.
Fred Krueger further highlights a groundbreaking moment: the U.S. government's strategic Bitcoin reserve. This move, he asserts, is the ultimate stamp of legitimacy for Bitcoin. If your government is buying Bitcoin, shouldn't you? This seismic shift underscores Bitcoin's enduring dominance in the financial landscape. Krueger advises ditching the trading mindset and embracing Bitcoin as a long-term powerhouse, likely the best performing asset you'll ever own. He challenges the conventional wisdom of allocating a mere 1 to 2% of your portfolio, insisting that such caution underestimates Bitcoin's transformative potential. With the government signaling approval, now is the time to reassess your allocation. This endorsement will ignite a tidal wave of investment, stabilizing Bitcoin and enhancing its appeal. As adoption grows, volatility will shrink, making the ride smoother for all participants. Instead of obsessing over short-term price swings, Krueger urges you to focus on the bigger question: how much should you invest before the market transforms entirely? The clock is ticking, he warns. The government's involvement marks the beginning of a new financial era, one you can still join before the window closes. Let's go back to the interview and watch more clips to gain insights from Fred Krueger.
We're moving very, very quickly in a direction where we have a strategic Bitcoin reserve, where the largest entity in the world, which is the US government, is buying Bitcoin. And so if you're not buying Bitcoin and your government is buying Bitcoin, and you're sort of still on the Peter Schiff train that this is not real money, you got to go see a doctor, because obviously it's real if the U.S. government is buying it. So it doesn't matter how much the U.S. government buys.
Yeah.
The fact that we have a strategic reserve is all you need to know. That is all you need to know. And that means that if you're a company, your company needs to buy Bitcoin. If you're a country, your country needs to buy Bitcoin. If you're an individual, you need to start front running that as fast as you can, right? You just got the go ahead. So you need to start your allocation, whatever it is way too low, So that's the mental shift. Here's the first problem is, if you think about trading Bitcoin, you're in the wrong. You've already said the wrong thing. Okay. You should not trade Bitcoin, period, full stop, ever. Okay. Yeah. So the fact that you're asking about trading Bitcoin is wrong. This is probably going to be, it will be the best asset, the best performing asset of your entire life. And, if you're trying to pick where it's going in the next 3 months, I have no idea. But this thing is going to go so much higher that the only thing you need to do is, how can I possibly stomach the inevitable volatility that's going to happen? and how much of a position can I take? Now, I would sort of say if your number is 10% of your portfolio or less, you're probably thinking the wrong number, right? You're probably in the wrong zip code. Okay. So if you're saying 1 to 2%, I mean, great. You've just seen the best asset of all times, and it with the best catalyst for growth of all times, and you're coming up with 2%. What's happening with the other 90%? At some point, we're going to have a tsunami of. There's a tsunami comes first, right? Which is, we get this thing in everybody's portfolios, and then the question is, once we have this sort of phase shift of, that we're about to see in the next year, I would say, then we're going to start to see that volatility come down, and people are going to take advantage of dips and buy them, and more people are going to put money in, and we're going to have more steady eddy. But not now, right? Right now, it's exactly the opposite. The biggest opportunity right now, and the biggest opportunity in your portfolio, is Bitcoin. It's how much Bitcoin do you own? I think the problem with all these other coins is you can get very distracted very quickly, right? You can say, well, what about Solana? Well, then what about, Avalanche? And what about Near? And what about Sui and Aptos? And, and you can spend the next month just getting lost in trying to understand all these different protocols, and if they're cheap or if they're rich, or you can spend all this time on that, right? But I think that it's a distraction. What you really need to do is figure out the main question, which is what percent of the portfolio of your portfolio is in Bitcoin. That's the number one thing right now. I really, if you already hold these coins, I would actually sell them and buy Bitcoin. Personally, I would just simplify your life.
Krueger emphasizes the importance of the recent election results on Bitcoin's ascent. He feels the best conceivable scenario for Bitcoin has unfolded, with values potentially reaching $100,000 or higher. According to him, ETFs and major acquisitions by MicroStrategy and others are causing investors to become more aware of Bitcoin. He anticipates the allocation to Bitcoin to swiftly exceed 1%, implying that traditional investors' current allocation is less than 0.31% of their portfolio. Krueger suggests focusing on Bitcoin and optimizing investment tactics. He recommends treating other cryptocurrencies as leisure rather than an investment. Krueger points out that Bitcoin's volatility will fall as more investors engage. He recommends avoiding overthinking and overtrading, instead emphasizing long-term gains. For individuals investigating alternative cryptocurrencies, Krueger recommends allocating a tiny amount of their wealth, similar to gaming or leisure. Krueger believes the proposed Bitcoin reserve will move forward, noting bipartisan support and the Democratic Party's transition toward a more crypto-friendly position. He believes the SEC will become more crypto-friendly as Gary Gensler's retirement opens the door for reform. Krueger's outlook is positive, predicting a crypto-friendly administration and SEC. With Bitcoin's price hitting $93,000, he sees great opportunity for development, pushing investors to focus on their Bitcoin allocation and avoidable volatility. As we conclude, are you buying, holding, or selling Bitcoin amid the current bull run? Please drop your thoughts in the comments below, share this video, and hit your thumbs on the like button. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.